Good afternoon. Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, that sounds like the people in Portland that's ready for some action to happen. We are gathered here on this occasion, this afternoon on November the 25th, the day after the announcement of not a true bill in the grand jury investigation of the death of Michael Brown by the officer Darren Wilson. We thank you for coming, for being here, for expressing your concern. Whichever way you decided, for or against, we are all in this together. What's good for one is good for us all. We are more determined today, tomorrow, and the future that we will continue the struggle for freedom, for justice, for reform, and accountability, beginning across the street in City Hall and behind us in the Justice Center where the Portland Police Bureau resides. We will not stop on this marathon until it is completed. We are here for the long run. Yes, we are. Again, it is just good to have you here on behalf of the Albina Ministerial Alliance Coalition for Justice and Police Reform. And if I didn't get that right, they're going to fire me this afternoon. But you got the message. It is a pleasure to have with us one of the greatest singers here in the city of Portland, Marilyn Keller, who is going to come and bless us with a song. And after she has sung, then the chairperson of the AMA Coalition, Dr. Leroy Haynes, will come and address you. Thank you. Marilyn, would you come at this time?
Forgive my sunglasses, I have an eye injury today. On behalf of Augustana Lutheran Church and my shepherd, Reverend Mark Knudsen, we'd like you to please just remember to hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Well, the one thing we did right was the day we started to fly. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. But the one thing we did wrong, we stayed out in the wilderness a little too long. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Sing with me. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Paul and Silas, bound in jail, had no money for to pay their bill. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Paul and Silas began to shout. The jail doors opened and they walked out. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. We're gonna fight for Michael Brown, for justice, and we never ever will go down. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Yeah, heaven is paved with gold. I've never been there, but that's what I've been told. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. We face jail and violence too, but we know the Lord will see us through.
of Michael Brown cries out for justice today throughout this nation and throughout the world. Once again, the African American community, communities of color, mental health communities, the poor, the marginalized, citizens who love justice and democracy, hopes have been crushed by the decision of the grand jury not to indict Officer Darrell Wilson for the killing of Michael Brown. Once again, we realize that the criminal justice system in America and law enforcement is tainted with racial bias when it comes to rendering justice and fairness to black people, to communities of color, to the disenfranchised and the marginalized. We know from our own experience here in the city of Portland that the brokenness of the criminal justice system and law enforcement, we know from Kendall James, we know from James Chassie, we know from Aaron Campbell, we know from Keaton Otis that there is no justice and fairness when it comes to a white police officer killing black and brown and poor people and mentally ill people in the city of Portland. What must we do about it? We must go back to we must not go back to our old routines and just talk about it. No, 1,000 times. We must fight to change this broken, unfair, and unjust system. We must use these moments of injustice to build a movement that will go to the ballot box, a movement that will raise social consciousness, a movement that will mobilize and organize citizens, a movement that will work to change laws and change the system and change the soul of America. Social transformation begins with us to create a more perfect union. Let us be reminded that change in America has happened before. Some 50 years ago, a nonviolent army led by Dr. Martin Luther King challenged a system of de jure and de facto segregation, a system in which lynching was prevalent, a system in which white supremacy was present, a system of inequality and discrimination where every part and every day of life. Ordinary people, few resources, no physical army, wage a violent struggle, a movement that brought down the walls of Jim Crow. History is calling us once again as a noble people in America to build a movement that will transform this unjust, unfair, an unequal system in our criminal justice system. The spirit of our God, the spirit of those who have come before us, who have died and bled and made sacrifice, the spirit of the unborn that are waiting to be born, is calling us to finish the task, to remake America into the beloved community that Dr. King dreamed about. This is our day. This is our moment. Our generation, another generation, answer the call today. Thank you. What do we want? What do we want? What do we want? Justice! What do we want?
And we're going to keep on walking and keep on talking. We're going to go on up this freedom land. At this time, we would like to call our former senator, the Honorable Abel Gordley. Is she present? She was over there. Well, she's on her way coming up. And if Joyce Harris is present, Joyce Harris, if you would make your way up at this time. Come on, give it up for the Honorable Abel Gordley.
All life matters. All life matters. All life matters. Turn to the person next to you and say, I see you. All life matters. Give that person a hug. Right now. We are here standing together for everything that is right and just and fair. All life matters. All life matters. Amen. Somebody say amen.
We're now going to call Reverend David Leslie, who is the Director of Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, to come at this time. Welcome, David.
Thank you, everyone. What I'd like to do is read a statement that was just issued by the Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon Board of Directors on this occasion. Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon stands in prayerful solidarity with the people of Ferguson, Missouri, in the wake of yesterday evening's grand jury decision. We pray in this time of serious tension, a tension that we have known here in Portland. We pray for all of us, and we pray for all of them, the citizens, the people on the street, the demonstrators, law enforcement officials, and justice seekers. It's our hope that this tragedy will be a transformative moment, deepening our awareness of the racial divides that do exist in our communities. As Michael Brown's father stated, I do not want my son's death to be in vain. I want it to lead to incredible change, positive change, change that makes the St. Louis region better for everyone. This afternoon, we recall the ancient words that have such contemporary meaning found in the prophet Micah's word to all of us. And that is that question, and what does the Lord require of you? But to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. To work for both justice and peace today requires a commitment to building, as Dr. Haynes said, quoting the great Dr. Martin Luther King, the beloved community, by advocacy and action, deepening racial awareness, by engaging in sacred conversations, and most importantly, dismantling the systems that perpetuate racism and contribute to the unnecessary deaths of people like Michael Brown and so many other young people of color and young people generally in this country. My friends, today, if we could use this moment of tragedy to rededicate and re-energize our own commitments to these ends, I believe there will be hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As Reverend Kate Moore from First Unitarian Church University is going to come, I'm going to ask all of you who have been confirmed as a speaker for this evening. We want to keep our program as tight as we can so we can begin the march. If you would please find yourself up on the top of these steps behind us so that we can move this expeditiously along. Thank you very much for your cooperation.
Good afternoon. I want to ask those of you who identify as white to raise your hands right now. Okay? Take a look, because we need you. Right? This is a struggle that affects us all, and it's going to take us all, because the fact of the matter, to quote W.E.B. Du Bois, a system cannot fail those it was never meant to protect. Right? And that's what we're talking about here. Right? This is not about a few bad apples. Right? It's not about a bad barrel. It's about the barrel makers. Yeah. That's right. And so I want to call out to you, most especially to the white people who can have the privilege of going back to normal lives. I want to challenge you. This is your moment. This is your moment to step up, to not take over, to listen, and to walk with the people most impacted by this. Now the public is all frightened in front of their televisions, wondering what we're going to do, right? They're wondering why it is that people are calling out the National Guard. They're wondering why there's people out there on their police looking for trouble, right? Because we're scaring them. But what they don't even get is that they're being impacted too, right? So it's going to take all of us, and acknowledging those systems that divide us and refusing to go back to normal. That's what it's going to take to turn this ship around. And just in case we need a little reminding, let us say it loud enough for people in these apartments to hear. We want us to go away and to stop causing trouble. No justice, no peace. 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 Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. Michael Alexander, CEO, Opening Appointment.
Good evening. The Urban League stands in proud solidarity with all who are present here today, but particularly with the leadership of the Albina Ministerial Alliance for Justice and Police Reform. We want to express our deep gratitude for the long-standing and courageous leadership that they have brought to the issue of police accountability and the disheartening history of the use of excessive force within our city. We stand here today because we have all come to sadly recognize the tragic circumstances of August 9th in Ferguson, Missouri, which took the life of Michael Brown. This young man's name is added to that of many other young black men and women whose life paths came to a sudden end because of police misconduct. Michael Brown's name is forever embedded in our memory. However, for many of us, it's the last name on a long list. Kamari Gray and Eric Garnes in New York. Ezel Ford in Los Angeles. Wendell Adams in New Orleans. Oscar Grant, the young man whose life and whose death was chronicled in the film Fruitville Station in Oakland. But if for some reason those names are not familiar to you, I'm sure these are. Keaton Otis. Yes. James Perez. Yes. Kenya James. Yes. Aaron Campbell. Yes. Their deaths point to a fact that is indisputable. Long before there was a Ferguson, Missouri, there was a Portland, Oregon. Long before. The call for justice and police accountability is one that members of this community have demanded for decades. Throughout that period, the leadership of the AMA has been one to speak truth to power and oppression with unwavering courage and resolve. This is the path on which we stand today, and on which we have to recommit ourselves to continue to travel. The frustrating question that we face is always, when do we arrive at the point of justice and accountability that we, our families, and our communities demand and deserve? I don't know the day, but I sought out the wisdom of Dr. Martin Luther King to frame a way to keep that destination in sight. I chose a quote from the speech that he gave on the steps of the Alabama State Capitol in 1965 at the end of the march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. I know you are asking today, how long will it take? Somebody's asking, how long will prejudice blind the visions of men, darken their understanding, and drive bright-eyed wisdom from her sacred throne? Somebody's asking, when will wounded justice lying prostrate on the streets of Selma and Birmingham and communities all over the South be listed from this dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of men? Somebody's asking, when will the radiant star of hope be plunged against the nocturnal bosom of this lonely night, plucked from the weary souls with chains of fear and the manacles of death? How long will justice be crucified and truth buried? I come to say to you this afternoon, however difficult the moment, however frustrating the hour, it will not be long. Because truth crushed the earth will rise again. How long? Not long, because no lie can live forever. How long? Not long, because you shall reap what you sow. How long? Not long, because the arc of moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. So spoke Dr. King. I conclude by asking that we continue as a beloved community to navigate the path to justice and accountability, however draining, however demoralizing, and however difficult. Because we can settle for nothing less, and ain't nothing gonna turn us around.
I would like to this time to call, I think it's Gina Frazzini, and if I did not say your name right, I got it, she's going to come. And followed by her will be Jason Renault of the Mental Health Association of Portland. And then I want to ask, I know that there are some Jefferson students that are here. Jefferson students. I want the Jefferson students to begin to make your way up, and they'll make room for you right over here by Senator Abel Gordley for just a moment, and then your speaker is going to come up pretty shortly. All right, at this time, Gina Frazzini. Will Edwards is going to represent Basic Rights Board.
My soul is weary. I am not surprised. You should not be surprised. Disappointed, yes. Angry, yes. Sad, yes. Tired, hell yes. But I am not surprised. You know, in some ways, the verdict from the grand jury did not matter, because we know this is a movement and not a moment. And I'm proud that Basic Rights Oregon, along with so many other organizations, are dedicated to that movement. You know, in some ways, that decision did not matter, because it's not just about Darren Wilson. It's not just about the Portland police that decided to stand with Darren Wilson. That's right! Although they are not absolved from guilt, they are not absolved from justice. But it's about, they are products of an institution that is built in a system on white supremacy. A system that was never meant to protect us. Never meant to protect us. So what does justice look like? How do we have justice? Justice when black lives really truly do matter. Not something we just say or talk about. Something that we can live and see, feel, trust in, believe in. So that means white people here today and everywhere need to use your white privilege to challenge and break down white supremacy every day. Every day. And if you don't know how to do that, find out. Black people, communities of color, come together, support efforts like the AMA, the cop watches. You know, the poem says, life ain't no crystal stair. But I have to keep climbing and fighting. And it's not fair, but we have to keep on fighting. We have to keep fighting until we fix this broken system. And then we may have justice. And then finally, we may just have some peace. Good evening, everybody. My name is Baki Coles, and I go to Jefferson High School. I'm from Southern California. I'm here as a sophomore. I'm a junior now. I am the president of the BSU. We have been working together to find real peace. And I wrote a little monologue today because I like to freestyle, but I figured I'd collect my thoughts. We're here today not only for the justice of our fallen brother Mike Brown, but for the justice of all our fallen brothers and sisters who cry for help and they were never heard. We rally, we protest, we voice our opinion, and yet I fear the list of our fallen brothers and sisters will still grow. I cannot accept that. I can't accept them justifying the murder of another human being, let alone children. I go to school full of potential targets. I am one myself. But I cannot accept that this is just the way things are. That's right. Going up to this point, I've had to accept being told not to question why we don't get the necessities of living a peaceful way of life. For too long, I've had the perspective that our history ends with slavery or is separate from Africa, the motherland. But my ignorance to the truth that African history is human history is not my fault. The youth of this nation, the future of this nation, is dependent on a system of schooling that has no interest in teaching our true history. They would rather teach the conqueror's history, no interest in teaching us knowledge of self. They would rather keep us angry for the sake of the prison industrial complex. There's no interest in teaching us economics or finances, but we're supposed to know these things to survive in a capitalistic society. We need to stop depending on this system that doesn't have our human necessities in mind and would rather brag about the little things they do to help instead of addressing the elephant and donkey in the room, which is that we need to until we can unite as a planet to achieve the basic human rights we deserve, we will always face oppression. Every bright mind in this crowd, on this earth, has the capability to lead us out of darkness. But until it takes every bright mind to lead and do so for us to brighten up the world around us. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
And that is why we have a future, because of people like that. I'm going to follow his lead because I wanted to make sure that I said certain things and I didn't want to just forget them, so I wrote them down as well. And it's hard to put together the right words when on some level, my emotions are indescribable. I want to yell loud over and over, and then I'm just sad. And then I realize I want to fervently not incite. And then it starts all over again. I know too well that it's safe to be quiet when such emotions rage, but at this time, being quiet would be wrong. Very, very wrong. Every person of color in America knows profiling. That is the context here. We know it. It is a reality that we walk out the door into every day. The first thought at the beginning of any encounter with law enforcement is, am I going to die today? It's a reality that becomes a special terror when we become parents, and our children go into that same reality. No matter what happened on that street in Ferguson, if you tell me that it wasn't the fruit of the poison tree of profiling, I'm going to ask you to prove it. That might have been sorted out in the trial, but the evidence for all to see. But that door was closed yesterday. An opportunity lost. Now, how many times must this happen? Every time profiling is studied, it's confirmed, and people like me think, well, I could have told you that. And yet, every case that follows the same predictable trajectory, as if it doesn't matter that the story has been repeated countless times. Protect and serve. Now, I yearn for a world in which we can believe back. A world in which the tools of law enforcement are the tools of peacekeeping. A world in which all of us can look to the uniform and badge for protection. I have to believe it's possible. It's not our world now, though, I'll tell you that. It's not our country now, folks, and it's not our city now. What are we going to do about it? And when we say we, I don't mean just people of color. I don't mean just civic leaders. I don't mean just the police bureau. I don't mean just white people. I mean all people of color. We need each other now and always. Our pain and our grief at a time like this may not be the same pain and grief, but every person of conscience feels it. There are police officers of conscience. They are victims too. The fact that when the fabric of our American community is torn and frayed, we are all in danger. And no arsenal or fortification will protect us when the danger comes from within. Neither childish bullying or taunting nor a taste of confrontation have any place among those sworn to protect and serve. Abiding in obvious respect for all human lives must be a fundamental qualification for the job. The mere suspicion that the tools of law enforcement are perceived or deployed as instruments of domination rather than peacekeeping and protection frays that fabric. Nothing about the Ferguson grand jury process quelled that suspicion. In fact, this failure just magnifies all the failures that have come before. Every additional case makes it harder to evaluate the next as anything but another confirmation of systemic oppression. The fabric of our community will not repair itself. We either weave trust and respect, or we rip them apart. I have to believe that we are better than this. I believe that as somebody else was going to hear this quote another time, I believe that the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice. I'm frustrated with how long it is, and along with our president, I believe that it bends because each of us in our own way puts our hand on that arc and we bend it in the direction of justice. These conditions did not fall out of the sky. They are the result of decisions made by human beings. And human beings, people of conscience, can decide to change them. The question really isn't, can it be done? The question is, are we up to it?
I'm Jason Renault with the Mental Health Association of Portland, and you probably know why I'm here. No true bill. Were there sadder words ever spoken? Yesterday's grand jury decision exonerating Officer Wilson hit us right in the gut and compounded the tragedy of Michael Brown's death. It is a setback. And setbacks like this hurt us. And they hurt the spirit of those who would share a common dream of justice and police reform, and who share a common ideal of equity and peace. Decisions like Ferguson and similar grand jury decisions here in Portland challenge this common dream we all share. They divide us from our friends and our allies. They make us bitter. They hurt us, they disappoint us, they disillusion our children, they breed apathy. They injure our hope for a better world. So how do we think about this? How do we rethink this? We rethink it by asking the question in a different way, not asking a simple yes or no question. The question is, was the use of force in policy justifiable? Yes. Was it avoidable? Yes. Was the use of force determined by training? Yes. Was it avoidable? Yes. Was the use of force justifiable? No. Was it avoidable? Yes. As advocates, we must seek to ask a different question to get a different answer. Again and again, when we approach the law, we are disappointed and defeated. But reframing the question, was use of force avoidable? Was it avoidable? Yes! The hope is the difference between these two words, justifiable and avoidable. Right. Was the death of Kendra James justified by the district attorney? Yes. Was it avoidable? Yes! What about the deaths of James Jahar Perez, or Raymond Werther, or James Chassie, or Jack Collins, or Keaton Otis, or Aaron Campbell, or Brad Morgan? You may not know some of these names, but they're just the same. Nick Davis, Stephen Bowler, Thomas Higginbotham. These deaths were both justifiable and avoidable. Yes. Was the death of Michael Brown avoidable? Yes. His death was justified and avoidable. Justifiable and avoidable. This is the dilemma. When these two words don't equate, we're not satisfied. In almost all circumstances, this elegant system of a grand jury works with one key exception, police use of force. This is where the blind spot is. These checks and balances should lead to justice, but instead they lead to blindness. They lead to no trill bill. They do not bring cops to justice when they misuse force, not in Ferguson, and not in Portland. Nowhere. Nowhere. What keeps our hope alive, what keeps cops safe, and what makes politicians trustworthy, and what keeps this community tight are the vigilance of these community leaders right here. The people you are hearing today and you are seeing today, these are the ones you need to support. This is how you can help, is by supporting this community and this leadership. As you've heard, the Albina Ministerial Alliance, Portland Cop Watch, Urban League, all these churches, they need your help. I urge you not to be hurt. I urge you not to be discouraged, not to accept defeat in Ferguson or here in Portland by becoming angry or resentful or bitter. We're surrounded by police. They're ready for you to be angry. Don't be angry. Okay, don't act on it. We can say a prayer for Ferguson. We can say a prayer for the children of Ferguson. And all of us gathered here are going to survive and come out of this, but what will be changed? What will be gained? What will be gained is when we stay in the game, when we learn to win, when we get organized to make the change, and that's when we become the justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Let us also remember Mahalia Poot and other names that have lost their lives to violence, excessive use of force. At this time, we're going to have two more speakers, Jumo from the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and then representing the Portland State University Black Student Union, Tony Fuentes.
Wake up, Portland, Oregon, wake up! Let's first give our love and respect to the Albina Ministerial Alliance. They've been on the front line of this fight for many years. Let's give them our love and respect. Next, irrefutable proof. Without racism, you can't have terrorist cops. And and the reason why you have racism is because of capitalism. There's no question about that. No question. So we know that the capitalist system, which is a system where profits are more important than people, was built on the backs of working class white people. Is that right? That's right. We know that capitalism has been built on the backs of Asian people and indigenous people whose descendants are out here today. Is that right? And without question, we know that capitalism is built and maintained by exploiting Africa and African people. No question about that. And we know that we have had 500 years of fighting from overseer to officer. We have had 500 years of burning plantations to cities. So we know we shouldn't be surprised by anything this decadent system does. But at the same time, our solution is revolution, but we know y'all ain't ready for that tonight. So we didn't come here to talk about that. That's not our message tonight. That's not our message right now. Please listen. Our message to you is each and every one of you has to be in some organization working for justice. Each and every one of you out here. Now, you know, everybody clap. Everybody clap. But y'all know, most of y'all out here ain't in no organization. You know that. 6 or 7 out of 10 of you out here ain't seen no organization. You know that. You go from rally to rally, from event to event. You go so often you think you're organizing something. We got to change that, y'all. We got to change it tonight. The forces that oppress us are organized. Look at them back there on them horses. They organized. What you gonna do? We got several organizations that sponsored this. I need to read them because I need you to know who they are. I need them to seek you out. I need you to seek them out. I need you to engage tonight. We got the Albina Ministerial Alliance. They need your help. Join it. Portland Cop Watch needs your help. Join it. Portland Jobs with Justice needs your help. Join it. Jewish Voices for Peace needs your help. Join it. The All African People's Revolutionary Party needs your help. Join it. Iraq Veterans Against the War, Killjoy Prophets, they need your help. Join them. We've got Hella 503 Collective, they need your support. The Portland Central American Solidarity Committee. Right, the Rose Hips Medic Collective, the Portland Urban League, the Portland Committee for Human Rights in the Philippines, the International Socialist Organization, and Rising Tide, all these organizations. And if you don't want to join one of those organizations, then start the My Ideas Are Better Than Yours organization right here tonight. And recruit among this crowd and get to work, y'all. Get to work. Stop coming to these rallies and going and having a meal and a beer and waiting for the next 28 days for somebody else to get shot by terrorist pigs. Stop doing that. Get organized. Get organized. beautiful out there. This is what the beloved community looks like. This is what real social justice looks like. I stand here today representing not only Portland State University, but the NAACP for the city of Portland. I didn't prepare nothing to come out here to talk about. They just told me to come over here a little while ago. So I'm just going to share from my heart and share what I posted on my Facebook. But I want to start by telling you, do not go quietly into that dark night. This has been a darkened night in America. But we have the opportunity to rise up and use our collective voices to tell America enough is enough. Last night on my Facebook I wrote this. America, how much more do you want us to bear? We bore the injustices of slavery. We bore the lies of emancipation. We bore the burden of segregation. We bore the indignities of Jim Crow. We bore the annihilation of our communities. We bore the brunt of mass incarceration. We bore the debt of your housing markets. We bore the magnitude of under and unemployment. We bore the assassination of our leaders and now our children. How much more, America? What is the cost of justice and freedom? What is the mortgage on the lives of black and brown folks? How many more amortized payments will you claim without reducing the principal balance on our earned freedom? When will Black Lives Matter? And when will you pay back into the siphoned coffers of our broken communities? You have heard them talk about the arc of time bending towards justice. Today, we grapple that arc and we pull it now. We pull justice now. We pull justice by voting. We pull justice by showing up. We pull justice by getting involved. We pull justice by not being silent. For injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere.
At this time, we're going to call Angelica A.M., Portland Committee for Human Rights in the Philippines.
My name is Angelica Lim, and I'm going to try something really quick. I'm going to say, there is only one solution, and then you say, revolution, revolution. There is only one solution. Revolution, revolution. There is only one solution. Revolution, revolution. There is only one solution. Revolution, revolution. Thank you, Portland. I organize with Portland Committee for Human Rights in the Philippines and Buy In USA, a national alliance of progressive Filipinos fighting for liberation and genuine freedom for the Philippines and all oppressed peoples of the world. Our honor and appreciation goes to the organizers of the event. We are here with you to condemn the grand jury for their abhorrent failure in seeking justice, and we call out the continual systemic oppression and murder of black bodies and black livelihood. We are here with you as we cry out in the face of a racist system that was never meant to be just. This system has proven again and again that it continues to maintain white supremacy at its core with its inability to indict Darren Wilson. Philippines, under the banner of Buy In USA, are bounded in solidarity with the people of Ferguson, where uprising and rebellion against the white supremacist police and local governments are justified in the wake of Michael Brown's murder and the grand jury's continuation of racist historical trends. As the National Guard occupies Ferguson, we see how collective anger and cries for justice are met with fierce and corrupt militarization. USA recognizes and supports the rights of African Americans to self-determination. As an anti-imperialist and anti-capitalist organization, we see the self-determination and national liberalization of black people not only crucial to the movement for freedom and democracy in the U.S., but for the whole world. The right to self-determination includes the right to self-defense. We support the organizing of black communities to chart their path to freedom and democracy. PTRIP also supports the call from black organizers for the formation of black self-defense networks to defend black lives from police terror and state violence. We condemn the institutionalized racism that targets the lives of black people daily. We denounce the state-sponsored police violence that systemically criminalizes, devalues, dehumanizes, and violates the safety and lives of black families. We mourn the lives of all black peoples, black children, black women, black men, black trans folks, all black people. We take to the streets in our own communities to protest state repression while fighting for rights of immigrants and working class people of color. We understand all too well the connection between our struggles for liberation and the hypocrisies of a system that is not pro-people. We stand in solidarity with our homeland in the Philippines, to Palestine, to Hong Kong, to Mexico, and to Ferguson. We are here united. In solidarity, it is our duty to fight for collective freedom of all our people. We continually link our struggles. We are firm in solidarity with Ferguson, Missouri. We hold in solidarity the family of Michael Brown and the families of other young black and brown people who are unjustly fall victim to violence in the hands of the state. We call for an end to the militarization of the masses, for our voices are loud, our energy unwavering, and our spirits contagious. Ferguson and the people have the right to rage, a right to demand genuine justice. Justice for Mike Brown and all black lives taken by white supremacy. Self-determination for all black people. Black lives matter. Before Michael Brown, long live international solidarity.
Everyone, thank you for being here today. Thank you once again to the speakers, to the Albina Ministerial Alliance for allowing us to have our voices heard today. This is one more song that I have to do before I leave you. How can we have peace in the Middle East when there's none at home? How can we have understanding in the land when there's none in the woman and there's none in the man? How can we heal the wounds of the world if we cannot heal our own? And where does this peace on earth begin, if not in the home? Where do we go now? Do we let the devil in, or do we get up and fight? an end to the violence, bring an end to the tears. How can we heal the wounds of the world if we cannot heal our own? And where does this peace on earth begin, if not in the home? Well, there's too much talk about it, and too many walk without it. Tell me, where is the love? Where is a God in your life? To my left, a woman abuses her children. To my right, somebody's beating their wife. Tell me, where is this love? Where is a God in your life? How can we heal the wounds of the world if we cannot heal our own? And where does this peace on earth begin, if not in the home?
Good evening. My name is Micaiah Dutt. I'm a volunteer organizer with the Iraq Veterans Against War Portland chapter. I'm a four-tour veteran of the United States criminal war in Iraq. Let me begin by stating that we are gathered here in front of the Injustice Center on the occupied lands of the Multnomah and Clackamas peoples of the Chinook Indian Nation. This land has been under U.S. military and police occupation for about 160 years. This land was stolen through genocide and legal theft. That theft is maintained even until this day by local, state, and federal police forces. It is important to know this because this entire nation is under occupation. And it is in times like these when the American system of injustice places its legions of enforcement officers in the streets, and the occupation becomes visible for all of us to see. It's recent news that the police officer Darren Wilson, murderer of Mike Brown, was not indicted by a grand jury in the city of Ferguson, Missouri. What is not recent or even unheard of news, and quite actually common, is for harassment, brutality, and even murder by state police forces to go unpunished while their victims are friends, family members, neighbors, and comrades suffering dignity after indignity after indignity under this oppressive apparatus. The state murder of Michael Brown, whose murderer walks free this night, has brought America to a new awakening as we witness in our own time the resurrection of an old life. Jim Crow comes smashing into the 21st century. But a simple historical examination shows that he never left. The state murder of Michael Brown has exposed America of its bloody roots and its history of brutal occupation, demonstrating that the spirit of Jim Crow is alive and well in this society. Tonight, the people of Ferguson, Missouri live under military control. Control established by police and military presence under a so-called coalition. Before our very eyes, we witness the state of Missouri construct and deploy its racist military apparatus upon the hurting and righteously angry people of Ferguson. Just like I witnessed in Iraq, where another so-called coalition of racist states deployed its genocidal military apparatus. This attempt at control is established through large groups of armed, white, mostly men, stationed at multiple checkpoints across the city. Rifle by rifle, they extend and exert political power through the barrel of a gun. So let us consider the situation in occupied Ferguson, Missouri. Again, I say tonight, the people of Ferguson, Missouri live under military control. Occupation, an occupation established by local and state police forces, the National Guard, and a multitude of federal intelligence and policing agencies. This coalition is unified by one mission: to uphold the rule of law, which they mean racial repression. We know this racist system allowed the murder of Michael Brown. We know the Justice Department, the state of Missouri, and the city of Ferguson have no intention of indicting or charging the murder of Michael Brown, the police officer Darren Wilson. If justice is to be had, then it will be had because the people have organized themselves and demanded change by any means necessary. So then, what does it mean to be organized? What is this work that we now feel compelled to continue? It is a work that begins in the hearts and actions of all oppressed peoples who have organized themselves to fight oppression in all its systemic forms. I come from the tradition of GI resistance, where it was soldiers and veterans who shut down, well, among many others, who shut down the United States' evil and unjust war in Vietnam. They studied the problem, organized against the problem, and acted by participating in mass civil disobedience, both on and off the job. They made it impossible for the empire to continue its war. That is my tradition. But there are many, many more. Let us recall the powerful Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army, and organizations like the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, which continue to this day in the tradition of Pan-Africanism. We are not starting from scratch. There are many, many organizations over the last few hundred years of occupation who have educated themselves, activated themselves, and fought to change their condition. This work is more than just building community. It is more than just feeding and clothing the millions neglected by this evil empire. It is more than just demanding a higher wage for the theft of our labor and the continued participation in the exploitation and extermination of this continent and our resources. This work is the targeted study of the North American empire, its ruling class, its armed forces, to include the murderous police forces which plague every city, county, and state on this occupied continent. We must struggle to learn all we can about the axis of evil, the three pillars of the United States empire: white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism. These systemically enforced plagues allow and legally justify the murder and enslavement of oppressed peoples from all over the occupied Americas. We need to know that. It is the police officer who continues in the tradition of the slave patrol overseer and the white supremacist militia, who is a threat to the lives of every black male and everybody else in this damn society. And it is the U.S. government regime, Democrat and Republican, backed by soldiers, is the U.S. regime backed soldiers by both the National Guard and federal, who will step in when the police find themselves overwhelmed by our commitment, organization, and agitation. These forces are established to keep us under control by any means necessary, and we need to understand this. I say all this to say that if you feel the righteous anger and you want to respond to this evil assault on the African community, do not go home and let this anger fester. You cannot fight an unjust, evil empire by yourself. You cannot combat 500 years of occupation with your thoughts and realizations alone. The empire will not crumble because we finally come to understand just how evil it is. It will crumble because we organize. It will fall because we have gathered and demanded a new way of life. It will finally be held accountable when we come together and organize with the purpose we hold it to account. So get educated, get organized, and agitate for a new world. A world where murderous state police forces are not only held accountable, but are finally abolished. Rest in power, Michael Brown. All power to the people.
There are representatives here from CAUSA, the Oregon Immigrant Rights Organization, and a panel. Would you please see me at the top of the steps immediately? At this time, we will have Wally, who will come and share with us from the Students United for Palestinian Equal Rights, SUPA.
I want to thank the organizers for inviting me to speak about the connection between Ferguson and Gaza and what's happening in Palestine. I want to start by talking about U.S. and Israeli government officials who say that the alliance between the U.S. and Israel is based on the shared values of democracy and freedom. This summer, they showed us what the true values were when the bombs were dropping in Gaza and the bullets were being fired at Mike Brown. It was these shared values 2 years ago that we saw when Trayvon Martin was killed and the police arrived and they didn't arrest George Zimmerman. They drug tested Trayvon Martin's dead body. It was these shared values that were on display when 4 Palestinian children went to a beach in Gaza because that's the only place they felt safe, and an Israeli missile landed and killed all 4 of them. The shared values are not shared values of democracy and freedom. It's the shared values of racism and state-sanctioned oppression that we have seen time and time again. And they dare speak to us about violence. They have become, all of a sudden, in the media, preachers of nonviolence and peace. Where were they every single day when a black man is shot down in this country? Where was their love for peace when the bombs were dropping in Gaza or in Iraq or in Afghanistan or the drones were killing people in Somalia and Yemen? Where is their outrage against the killer violence that is poverty wages, that is inaccess to health care? Where is their rage there? Let's be absolutely clear. When they talk about nonviolence and peace, what they are actually telling us is that we need to suffer under their oppression peacefully. They want us to continue to suffer without raising a finger as they close our schools, as they evict us from our homes and from our neighborhoods, as they occupy and bomb our countries, and as they murder our children and the people that we love in front of our eyes. But we will not let them turn us back tonight. We will stand for justice. We will continue to come back until Darren Wilson is in jail. We will continue to fight until every person that has been killed by this racist system has found justice. They're afraid right now. That's why they delayed the announcement of the indictment. They're afraid right now. Why? Because of our solidarity, because of the thousands across this country that are out in the streets. And they're afraid because they know when the people of this country stand up and fight against racism, it exposes the rot that is at the heart of this system. But what they are really afraid of is that we will not come back day in and day out, which we will. but that we will rediscover what they've been trying to hide from us for 40 years now, and that is our political independence. I want to reiterate what Brother Ajamu said. There is a tradition that they have made disappear, and that is mass political organization. There was a time when being political did not mean going out once every 4 years and voting for one of the two corporate parties. Let's reinvent that tradition. Let's get together and organize, and let's fight for a better world.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! Now we're in preparation to do a march. And now I want to say very clearly that if you're here for violence, the AMA Coalition will denounce you, and we will hold you accountable.
Yes.
Hold them. We want to hold each other accountable. Yes. As we march in a nonviolent, if you have any other kind of spirit, create your own march. Organize your own march. But this is our march. And we will hold you accountable. And so we're going to have one more speaker to close us out, and then we're going to give direction on our march. What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! 10 years ago, we stood on these same steps demanding justice when Kendra James was killed here in our city. Once again, we stand together as one voice saying, what do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! We don't stand as one person, but we stand collectively together. What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! We want you to remain in your place to allow the leadership to get ahead of you. We will begin from this point, and we will go up to Jefferson, and that we will lead you in the direction of this march. And we will return back here at the Justice Center. Once again, I want you to turn to your neighbor and say, I'm holding you accountable. Turn to the neighbor on the other side and say, I'm holding you accountable. We're going to hold each other accountable. Hallelujah. And we will have a closing prayer by Reverend Mark Knudsen.
Coalition for Justice and Peace Steering Committee, we echo those words as we go out in peace, because the power of nonviolent protest has been the center of our movement, and it trains its spirit. So let us